Hey, what's going on? It is Dharma Time. I am your host, the Dharma Guy, and you are now live with us on WPSN99.com, the problem-solving network, where we stream solutions. Welcome. It is a muggy day, kind of, for me. It's a little warm, I guess. There's a slight breeze out here on the ocean, but it's a little rainy, which I love. But I'm indoors at the moment, so hey, what are you gonna do? Although I do have some visitors with me today. My daughter, my mom, and my sister actually came in from out of town, and they're all walking around shopping. So hopefully you guys have a good time. I'll see you guys in about an hour. Anyways, before we get started, let me go ahead and say thank you to all of our wonderful sponsors that allow us to do what we do. Without you guys, it would not be possible. So the first one I'm going to thank is Retreat Premier Addiction Treatment Centers. We saw them as a representative yesterday at our golf tournament, which I'll talk about in a minute. I think I saw John Shooter there out there kind of doing his thing. And John, man, way to drive the long ball, man. I don't know if I saw in one of them it was like I didn't think the ball was ever going to come down. I didn't know he had it in him.
He's strong.
Yeah, I didn't know he had it in him. But anyways, we also got Journey Pure. Journey Pure was there as well. We took a picture, and they wanted me in the group for the Journey Pure group. They wanted because all the pictures we took, we kind of just let them do their thing. We took pictures of them. But the Journey Pure, I guess because I am so fond of Mr. Dunn because of his affiliation with Notre Dame, Go Fighting Irish. So he wanted me to kind of join the group and take a picture with him. So I thought it'd be funny if I did the prison pose. So there's going to be one group picture with everybody standing up and me in the bottom kind of doing the real prison pose there. So look forward to that one. But yes, Journey Pure was there doing their thing. And Journey Pure actually, they gave us a bed during the our little kind of lunch thing. And they offered up a bed for the Now Matters More Foundation. So thank you so much for that as well. So not only are they a big supporter of here at the station, but they're also a big supporter of the Now Matters More Foundation. So,
yeah, they step up strong.
Yes, very much so. And then, of course, Orange County. Orange County was there. Carol, with her little umbrella, was just hanging out at one of the holes and doing her thing. She had a little table there for Orange County and kind of letting them know all the good work that they're doing there and supporting us not only at the station but at the foundation as well. And then finally, of course, the foundation that I keep referring to, the Now Matters More Foundation, which we had our golf tournament yesterday. You can go to nowmattersmore.org and you can learn all about what it is that we do, as well as make your own donation if you weren't able to go to the tournament yesterday and you still want to support a good cause. But
you can also follow the hashtag Now Matters More, and
yes,
you probably see some of the pictures that people have posted on Facebook and Instagram. Most likely,
yeah. We don't control that hashtag, so that you might see some stuff that's not ours, but yes, you will see a lot of our stuff up there.
It's all ours.
Is it really?
Yeah, all ours.
I haven't checked it all.
No, I'm just saying, it's all ours.
Okay. Yeah, it is now, right? If it wasn't before. But anyways, yeah, the golf tournament was really, really cool. And so I'm going to parlay that actually into what we're talking about today. And but the day was cool. So for those of you who aren't aware, we have a golf tournament every year, and we do that to raise money for the foundation. And this year we did it again, and we had a lot of good support. A lot of the companies, both local and not, kind of joined in and sponsored and played as well. We had some celebrities there. We had, I think the biggest name would be Daryl Strawberry. That's one people, kind of gravitate towards. But not to be outdone, we had Pinklin Thomas. And I'm going to say, man, I don't have the history with Pinklin as you do, but he's awesome. You know what I like most about him is his humility, man. He is so excited to be there, and he's so excited to kind of just be a part of stuff.
Yeah.
It's infectious. It really is, man. He's good people, man. So Pinklin Thomas, for those of you who don't know, is a 2-time heavyweight champ. Fought Mike Tyson and lived to tell about it. So, he's good people. And then we had Greg Sachs there, which is an old school Winston Cup car driver from NASCAR.
Right.
And then we also had Corbin
back when
Forrester.
it was Winston Cup. Yeah, that's it.
We had Corbin Forrester, it's a NASCAR truck series. I found out he was racing Tundras. So I told him, I was like, hey, that Tundra out front, that's mine, bro. Don't race that one.
You should give him the keys.
No. My insurance would probably not like that.
Right.
And then we had, now I didn't get a chance to meet the surfer.
Oh, CJ?
Yeah, CJ.
CJ, do you know how I met him, by the way?
How'd you meet him? He's Aaron's friend or something.
Yeah. So I was looking for someone to take care of the volunteers to get them out to the course.
Okay.
So this guy walks up to me, and it's CJ, but I didn't know it was CJ.
Okay. So
I said, "Do you work here?" I said,
So wait a minute. You asked one of our celebrities if he works at the tournament.
That's exactly what Aaron told me later. He goes, I can't believe I bring you a world championship surfer.
Dude, I looked
and
at
you
his,
asked him if he could.
He's got
if he
quite a
works
following,
there.
too.
I know.
He's like 45,000 followers or something.
I'm Mexican, bro. I'm not a surfer.
Well, me either.
So I felt really bad, but he took it really well, man. And he was like, "No, I don't work here." And I said, "So I guess you're not the one that's going to be taking people out to their holes." And he goes, "No." And then that's when Aaron showed up. He goes, "What are you doing?"
Wow, that is priceless. I wish I was there for that. That is awesome. Wow,
he'll never forget that story. I'm sure that had to humble him a little bit. You got to be humbled a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
It's not like he's Daryl Strawberry, where everybody just recognizes him just from what he looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
Surfers don't have a look to them that everybody just knows they're a championship surfer.
Everybody looks like a surfer. Like we're in Florida.
Yeah,
man.
we're in Florida. They all look like.
And then who? Oh, Fred Stokes. We had him there. Mr. Super Bowl champ for the Redskins, Fred Stokes. He was
1992.
Cool. He was cool. My first time meeting him. I get a chance to really mingle a lot, but the little bit of interaction I did have, he's pretty funny.
He's a really great guy.
Yeah, he seems really
Fred
cool.
Stokes Foods.
Yeah, he seems pretty cool. But anyway, so it was a good time. We had a good time. We of course we were talking. There's some things we want to improve on because we will continue to get better, and so we'll keep doing that. But as is, I think it was pretty good. And what I like most about it is everybody just seems to have a good time.
Right.
No matter what happens, at the end of the day, we're always we're there for a good cause, and people seem to have a great time. And
I think next year Marissa needs to come down and volunteer at a hole.
I like it.
Don't you think?
I like it.
It's close enough to spring break. She should be able to get a sponsor to bring her down.
down.
This is how you do it, Marissa. You find a sponsor to sponsor you to come down. That's how you do it.
Not only that, she can get a sponsor to do her trip.
That's what I'm saying.
Film the trip as she's coming down in the airport. Like, hey, I'm going down to do this.
The whole deal.
Yeah, make a whole big deal out of it.
Yeah.
I like that. I'm glad I thought of it. So, hey, it's Dharma Time, dude. Everything's mine here.
It's all yours.
But anyways, but it got me to thinking, right? So I was trying to figure out what today's topic was going to be about. And, we a lot of last-minute planning and things of that nature happening. And so, my mind, as yours is, I'm sure, is going a million different directions. And so I was trying to figure out a topic, and my sister actually said a topic name. But when I first got the topic, I was like, man, it's kind of heavy. I don't know if I could do that one. But then yesterday, it hit me like a ton of bricks when both Daryl Strawberry got up and spoke and Pinklin got up and spoke.
Right.
It hit me like a ton of bricks. And I knew immediately I could totally do a show on this now, and that is happiness.
Okay.
And I'm going to break it down in multiple different ways, but I think you and I can have a really good discussion about this. And because, the thing with happiness, everybody wants it. We all have different definitions of what it is, and we have different ideas on how to get there. But I think that's the one thing that unites all human beings is we all want happiness. And so we just get confused at times on how to get there. And so, for instance, there was on one of the groups I'm involved with on Facebook, somebody... I can't remember what they did. They posted something on the group as a question, and they're basically asking, is enlightenment good or bad or something like that. My response to that was, it all depends, I guess, on what your definition of enlightenment and good or bad is.
Sure.
I said, however, in theory, enlightenment itself, in this particular philosophy, enlightenment just means a cessation of suffering, meaning you're not suffering anymore. And I don't know of anybody that would say, oh, that's a horrible thing. So
right.
Based upon that philosophy, I'd call it good. And then he came on in response to that, and he said, well, then why is not everybody enlightened if they all think it's such a good thing? And I said, well, because it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. And I think that kind of we have we're unskillful as human beings, and we make mistakes. And he said, so the last one, he responded and he says, well, let me rephrase it. He says, why aren't more people trying to go for enlightenment then if it's so good and this and the other? And I said, I think they are. I think everybody is. I think every single person listening to this or not, I think every single person out there is all trying to find happiness in their own way. I said, I think that's where the problem comes into play is sometimes we get misinformed, or we place happiness on things that don't necessarily need happiness placed on it. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's where the unskillfulness comes into play, the confusion, if you will, because some of these people that you're looking at that you would probably call unhappy, they think that they're chasing happiness.
What are some of the ways that you think that people may misinterpret that?
Well, and that's kind of where I would parlay it into. So I think that oftentimes people confuse pleasure and joy with happiness.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes that because pleasure and joy feels good, right? It feels pleasurable. So this has got to be happy. This is great.
Right.
Because I can't tell you how many times I've been in group scenarios or even just kind of having these sort of philosophical discussions. And when I start asking people, what makes you happy? And it never fails, dude. Like, maybe I'm just in the wrong group areas, I guess, but it never fails. I always get the same kind of standard answers when I ask people what makes you happy. And the answers are friends, family, like dogs, like they're animals or whatever.
Right.
And then depending on which group I'm in, there's always some smart ass in the back that wants to, weed or sex or something like that. But for the most part, the serious ones that I take are friends, family, and like they're animals.
Right.
And we can combine animals with family, basically. So we'll consume, and even good friends can be considered family. So we'll call it family.
Right.
And so my thing is always, when I ask those people, I say, okay, so what you're telling me then is whatever you believe in is your higher power, if you're religious or not, you're basically saying, I don't care what your plan is and what you're trying to do. This is what I require, these specific things. And without that, I'm not going to be happy. I was like, do you really have that kind of power? Like, wow. Like, really? That sounds interesting. And then my next question is always, well, what happens if they go? What happens if you're one of because we as human beings, I mean, I hope I'm not having any breaking news here, but we all die.
Friends and family,
everybody ends. And so what happens? Like, if your friends or family are in a car accident, or let's say even not that severe, let's say they move away, does that just mean you're never going to be happy again for the rest of your life? I'm going to say you probably will be. It might feel that way at the moment, but at some point in your life, you'll start to move on, make new friends or whatever. And so
it might make it a little bit more difficult to move forward, though.
Could. Absolutely.
It might take a while. You're going to mourn a little bit.
Yeah, and the stages of grief are important, and they need to be gone through.
Right. But
the problem is you can still be happy even without that. And that's the thing is I try to get people to understand that happiness is more of a mindset, an idea. And I really do think that, especially in today's day and age, man, I think it's very easy to get caught up in all the ongoing. I mean, just today, earlier, while we were at lunch earlier, I saw that there's another school shooting, and my heart goes out to everybody involved in that situation. But I think in today's day and age, with all the stuff that we're seeing, I think it's very easy to kind of be unhappy. I think it's very easy to get caught up in all these events and all these things happening, and kind of get stuck in your own little sorrow almost, and not get outside of that. And that's the problem with attaching your happiness to all these impermanent things.
Are you going to be getting into examples of what to attach happiness to? I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Of course.
So don't ask ahead. Is that what you're saying, Louis?
By all means, dude.
Stay in my lane.
I am not about to control your. That's why we do so well.
Right. No, because I'm already wondering now. Give me an example. Give me a morsel. Give me a tidbit. Something.
The main thing I always tell people, and I kind of broke it down here on a two-pronged approach, right?
Okay.
And so let me start it out by saying this, I guess.
All right, good.
I'm going to start out by saying, and a big example of this was yesterday. This is what made me think of it. So here we are. We're at our golf tournament. Had a pretty decent day. It went well. It rained a little bit, but everybody kind of got over that. And so we're sitting here. We have our dinner, or lunch, I guess is what it was. And we're making our announcements, and we gave Daryl's birthday cake, and we're doing these raffles. I'm looking around, and everybody seems pretty content, and everybody's having a good time. And then Daryl asked to speak.
Right.
And so Daryl
got very unexpected.
Yeah, he's been there a few years, and he's never said anything.
Well, this is the first time he sat in front. He usually sits in the back.
He does. Actually, I never noticed that.
No. He always sits in the back, and he kind of leaves right away, because he's always got a trip plan. I mean, he's busy. His schedule is like on fire.
We had a Top Golf. He's like, I was just in Canada.
Yeah, he flew in from Canada and joined us at Top Golf.
And then his arm's tired.
Yeah, and he came to our golf tournament and then flew right back to Washington, D.C. to go meet with the White House.
Yeah, to talk about
the drug policy.
Yeah, man. So, but yeah, I think... anyways, so the thing, when he got up and spoke, and I've spoken to him on the side numerous times. Him and I had a really good conversation, actually, at Top Golf that night. It was just him and I were in the corner. We're kind of talking about some stuff. And then I saw him talk that day. And then later on, afterwards, it was Pinklin. Pinklin got up and spoke as well.
Right.
Love that, man. Pinklin's is such a... That dude loves to talk, man.
Yep.
He is awesome. But anyways...
He's an entertainer.
Yes. That, you know what? That's the perfect word for it. Entertainer. But anyways, so I would say that the one thing is what I noticed for the most part was they all had something in common.
Besides championships?
Well, that too, I guess. Spirituality.
Much so.
That's what they had in common. And their particular brand of spirituality is religion.
Right.
And I'm not going to put their specific religion out there. I'll let them do that. But it was religion. And but what I noticed, the common thread is spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think back of all the people I've met and interacted with, the ones that seem to be doing, I'm going to say, the ones that seem to be doing the best.
Right.
The ones that seem to be the happiest, that rebound very quickly from things and kind of just have a good mindset, they all seem to have spirituality in common.
Hmm.
And I can speak for myself. I had the intelligence. I had a good job at the time. I had good people around me, and I was still angry and upset. And I didn't seem to find my peace, my center, until I found where I made an effort, I guess, to incorporate spirituality into my life. Once I kind of decided to stop being stubborn, you know. As an atheist, I was very anti just the word spirituality, because typically people lump spirituality and religion together, and it's very hard to separate those at times. So for me, I was guilty of that. But once I kind of hit my flow, if you will, or I realized, like, dude, just something's got to change. That never bothered me anymore. I was like, all right, I need to change the way I look at this.
Right.
And so that's when I found this philosophy. But the thing I'm noticing, though, is spirituality really is, to me, a very good indicator as to how your level of happiness, from what I've seen. You know, now granted, I haven't done a study with like millions of people, or whatever, but I've watched a lot of like TED Talks. I've read books. I've met numerous people over the years, and the one thing I see that they all have in common: spirituality. So that's how I think I'm going to start it. Is I think that no matter how you define happiness, no matter what your brand of happiness may or may not be, I think that spirituality's got to play a key role. I really do. And that's actually what Daryl was talking about yesterday. And I think that's what he's going up there today to talk about, I believe. And it's something along those realms, because I know he's got a new thing that him and his wife are doing. But
well, that's the whole reason that they kind of not shut down, but they're revamping the Daryl Strawberry Recovery Centers.
Yeah.
All to be more faith-based, period.
Yeah, basically. So, so that for me, I think that's where it starts. I think it's got to start with spirituality, and that's why I'm doing the show, for instance, right? Because I'm doing the show because I firmly believe in the philosophy of Buddhism, but I believe in spirituality, number one. Buddhism just happens to be my brand of it. And so I'm not going to hate on anybody out there who has any other religion. The cool part, though, is this philosophy can work with anything. I don't care what religion you may or may not be. This can be another tool to your toolbox.
Right.
But without spirituality, I think you're setting yourself up for a very long road. And what I've noticed, though, is even in the groups, right? So we've been doing, you've been doing much longer than I have, but we've been doing stuff for years in the addiction world. And I've noticed a trend with that as well. The ones that I've interacted with in the group settings that have reached out to me that I see are doing great, they found ways of incorporating some form of spirituality into their lives. Regardless of what groups they may or may not be going to, regardless of other things, they all seem to have that in common. Because there's some people who go to different groups or whatever, so you can argue that all day long. But the one thing that I'm not going to argue is they found a way of incorporating spirituality.
Not only incorporating it, but they attach it to other forms of living rather than just using it for that specific pain. Exactly.
And so, but on the flip side of that, the ones that I see that might not be doing as well as others, some of them have reached out to me, and they said, look, man, I'm struggling right now. One of the very first questions I ask them is, where are you at spiritually? Like, what are you doing on a daily basis to incorporate spirituality into your life? And the ones that don't seem to be doing as well as the others all have the same, they all respond the same.
Right.
Some form of, I don't do that anymore.
Right.
Either it didn't work for me, I tried that, or I'm too busy, or I don't really know. Some form of an excuse, but the end result is I don't have spirituality in my life anymore. Right. So I think that when it comes to happiness, because I get that question a lot, dude. A lot. Because Buddhism is seen as being, whether it is or isn't, it's seen oftentimes as being very Zen-like and being very, I'm good. I'm nothing. And so I get that question. Dude, I get that all the time. I even get emails and stuff like that. Spirituality, man. I think that's where it starts. And when I say spirituality, I don't mean religion. I mean spirituality.
And the good thing about that, because I ask that question pretty much every time I interact with somebody in pain as well, and I think it's the one thing they don't seem to deny. People know where they're at because they know where they're at spiritually. People tend to admit freely, I'm not where where I know I should be. But that's also how you hear where they hope to be. Well, a lot of times you can hear some hope of where they would like to be,
Sure.
but then you'll hear the reasons of why they're not in a certain way. It's almost like asking, in other words, where you're at spiritually is almost as easy as asking people where you're at with your exercise routine.
It's exactly like that.
Because they answer kind of freely. They always want just a little bit more. They know what they should do. That kind of answer.
Yeah, and then when you ask them how, there's
you get the excuses.
Exactly.
Right.
And which is funny because what I've seen is they're freely admitting it, but very often it's been my encounters, if you will, that they don't associate the two. They don't see the connection. Right? They don't see that your level of happiness seems to be, and once again, I don't even email. I haven't studied this, but it seems to be to me, and I'd be willing to bet that that's probably what it is. They don't see the correlation. The more spiritual you are, your happiness kind of goes up. They're kind of connected.
Right. Instead of looking at it like, well, if I would just get that raise, then I'd be happy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because as we both know, the more money, more problems, right? Like
absolutely, I know that.
Everybody thinks if I make more money, then all my problems are gone. What they don't realize is you just have new, more expensive problems, right? I can attest to this because when I was younger, I was broke, man. Like I was working 2 or 3 jobs. I was super, super broke. And then when I got into the job that I was at for 11 years, I was making what some would consider great money.
Mm-hmm.
What changed in my life was I no longer had basic cable. No, I'm getting a movie package, brother. Like, what you talking about? Give me some HD on that now. And then my cell phone, like, I don't need the 1 gigabyte anymore. Let me get the unlimited package, because I'm a baller now, And so basically, you have the same problems, but you just have nicer stuff now, and so you're still just as unhappy. You just have nicer stuff to be unhappy with.
I pay all the same people everybody else does. I just don't. I just now choke when I look at that number.
Yeah, and so and that goes into the whole idea where what we associate with happiness is because everybody thinks that, not everybody, but a lot of people think if just.
If only.
Yeah, if I had more money, if I got this raise, if I got this job, if this person would like me back, if this, if that. And it's like, no, dude, the happiness is coming from within. And I know that sounds like a cliche fortune cookie, but happiness does come within. It comes from within. It really, truly does. I don't care how hard. I'm going to look right in the camera. I don't care how hard you try. You will never find another person, thing, or object to fill that void inside. It will never happen.
Right.
And it's really unfair, too, by the way. It's unfair to get into a relationship with somebody, and let's say you're over the age of 20, and you're going to get into a relationship with somebody, and now all of a sudden you're going to expect this other person that you just met, essentially, to fill 20 years of a void. That's a lot of pressure to put on that person. And not to mention, they might have their own voids, And it's not that person's fault that they can't raise it. You put the bar way too high. You're asking that other person to do something you haven't figured out how to do in 20 years. And you've lived with yourself for 20-some years.
Well, when people hire you to be a physical trainer, like parlaying off what Marissa just said on Facebook Live, they want you to fix the body they're going home and destroying every day.
Yeah.
But they're paying you, so you should be able to fix that.
Yeah, it was always my favorite when I tried to explain to people was, number one, they wanted it to come off overnight. I'm like, did you just wake up today where you're at right now? No, it took years. So it's going to take a while to come off.
Right.
And the other thing is, depending on what their financial status is or my scheduling, they might only be able to see me twice a week.
Right.
And twice a week, what are you doing the other 5 days?
Ice cream.
Exactly. So, but yeah. But even with spirituality, you can learn to accept yourself where you're at. Right. And so I think that.
But that's also a daily practice.
Yeah.
Instead of just on Sunday or Saturday.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that spirituality is where it starts. I think spirituality, you got to find whatever spirituality speaks to you. And for me, it was Buddhism, mainly because I liked the fact that it wasn't religion. I could kind of do what I wanted with it. Being an atheist, I didn't like the idea of faith, because we all define faith differently. But how I hear faith is believing in something, in a God-type figure. And that's just me personally.
You're giving it to him, huh? I don't give that to him.
I've always had a problem with it.
I'm keeping that word because I really like the word.
I was indoctrinated as a young age, man. So that's what I hear.
I pull it back.
But regardless,
you can have the word back. I give you permission. You can have it back.
I appreciate that. No. So anyways, so you got to find out what your spirituality may or may not be. If there's a religion out there that speaks to you, then by all means, man. But truly practice it, right? That's what I will say. Whatever your spirituality is, don't just use it when it's convenient. Don't just tell people, hey, this is what I am. Live it. So for those of you who do know me, I don't just talk about this stuff, man. I'm legit. Like, I practice this every day of my life. Some days I'm more skillful than others, but I never claim to be perfect. I just claim to be walking this path and trying to find my happiness. And so I think that you got to find out what your spirituality is, and then, like you said, if it is a religion, I'll use Christianity because that's just the one I know most about as far as
it's probably the most simple in this country.
So let's say you are a Christian. Don't just go to church on Sundays. You know, don't go Monday through Saturday, never touching a Bible, never interacting with somebody else on that kind of a level, and then expect all your happiness to come on Sunday for an hour. Yeah. That's not how it works.
Embrace the deal, man.
Yeah,
whatever it is.
Yeah, walk the walk. You know, find out what it is it takes to be the best Christian you can be, and then do it.
Right.
Same thing with Buddhism, Muslim, Jew, whatever your spirituality is, man. Really kind of, connect with that on some level. And so that would be the first. Because and that's what brought it to my attention. Because talking to Daryl and knowing the stuff that he's gone through, that dude, I swear, man, that dude has been through a lot. Some of which I can relate to and some I can't. Stuff I can relate to is the childhood stuff. But then getting what he got, achieving the level of fame and fortune he received, having a very, very public fall from grace.
Right.
And then news to me, some of the stuff that he told us that night about what he was told at the onset of his practice of trying to find sobriety, being told what he was told by some people, which can be very devastating, to climb all the way back up to be where, it's just such an amazing journey, right?
Yeah.
And going through cancer and everything, it's amazing to me. And that's why he's such a spiritual person. And that kind of happiness he has, dude, that peace that he has, nobody or nothing will take that from him, period. He can go through anything and come out the other side of that now because of that spirituality. Right. And to me, that's what spirituality does for you, is it gives you almost like that warm blanket on a cold night. No matter how cold it is, you got that warm blanket you can cuddle next to. It doesn't solve your problems.
Right.
Like I can tell you right now with spirituality, with Buddhism, it doesn't get rid of my problems. It doesn't make life easier. It makes my ability to cope with it easier. It makes my ability to put it in perspective much, much easier. And I think that's where people need to get on the path to find happiness, because at the end of the day, happiness is just a mindset.
Right.
And one of the things I often say to people is, happiness is so much closer to acceptance than it is to pleasure. And a lot of people don't understand what I mean by that. And so what I do mean by that is, and I've said it before in a previous show, but for those of you who didn't watch, why? But assuming you are now.
It's on YouTube.
Right?
Subscribe.
Yeah. Subscribe, like, share. But no, if, there was a gentleman I spoke with one time, and he gave me this big elaborate thing about why he was happy or whatever. And I told him, it wasn't any of those external factors. It was your mindset, right? And so everybody who's listening to this right now, you have moments of what I would consider happiness, right? Your peaceful moments. Problem is we don't pay attention to them. We're always worried about the next fix of pleasure or trying to avoid the next pain, right? So we're not thinking about right now.
Especially if it's expected.
Oh, exactly.
I don't want to derail you, though. Keep going.
Sure. Squirrel.
Yeah.
But anyways, no. So every single one of us has a moment, right? And so for everybody, it's a different moment. It could be your moment, if you're still of that ilk where you wake up and read your coffee or you read your newspaper while you're drinking your coffee. Other people could be in the morning shower, commute to work. You could be in the toilet. I don't care. There's a moment we all have every single day where you're good. You're not upset. You're not happy. You're just, I'm good. Like, I'm not worried about anything. I'm not stressing about anything. I'm not focused on what I don't have at the moment. I'm at peace at the moment. That's happiness, right? And that's a mindset, because your life didn't change in that however long it took for that moment to be there. Your life was exactly the same before, during, and after.
Right.
So what was the only change? Your mindset. That was it.
Some people would think that's a distraction. They think that they don't give that moment the power that it deserves. Instead, they say, I was distracted at the moment. I wasn't thinking about my bills. I wasn't thinking about my relationship. I wasn't thinking about my problems.
Yeah.
So that's why the distractions become very addicting. The distractions become very tempting to do over and over again.
Yeah. I definitely would say not to use it as a distraction, but I would say embrace what it is.
Right.
And what it is happiness. That is happiness. You're searching your whole life trying to find it. Little did you know, you have it every day. You just don't pay attention to it. Because it doesn't, there's not a big flashing sign, It's not sexy. What do you mean that's happiness? Yeah, you were good. Because I got bad news for you, man. There's always going to be problems. The first noble truth, guys, is pain is a part of life. And pain is anything you find unsatisfactory. I promise you, every single day there's unsatisfactory things in your life. What makes it different is your mentality.
So what do you tell the person that they say, okay, yeah, Trinity, I have that moment, but it's when I drink that wine after work, or it's when I smoke that bowl after work? What about to that person?
Oh, that's not a real moment, though.
But
you think that's a real moment.
Okay, so talk to them, because that's the reality of a lot of people. They think their moment is that.
Yeah, well, we spoke to a gentleman on yesterday who was representing firefighters and whatnot. And he was saying that one of the problems he came across was a lot of them didn't have good coping skills, because when he would speak to them, he would say, yeah, I have good coping skills, and they would run down this laundry list of stuff like, oh, I work out, I do this. And he's like, okay, that's great. What are your legitimate work? Come on, like, what do you really do? Oh, I go and have a beer afterwards. That's what they've attached as their coping skill. But that's not a coping skill, man. That's cheating. I mean, that's not legit, because that's masking things. There's a difference between acceptance and masking. Acceptance means I'm gonna have to come up with a good analogy for that one. Acceptance is just basically, it is what it is, right? I might not necessarily like it or want it to be this way, but I can accept that this is what it is, and that's okay. This is what it is for the moment. Doesn't mean that my next moment has to be this. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to work to actively improve it. But this is where it's at the moment, and I'm okay with it. This is basically what acceptance is. And to me, that's where the happiness comes in. That's where the mindset is. But no, masking it, is it working?
Well, at the moment, it is for them. I mean, before they see someone like me, before they have to reach out to a person like me, they think it is.
And that's denial is what that is, because it doesn't work. Right. You think it works because you didn't change.
Right.
The only thing you did is you added up substance for a momentary period of time.
In other words, it's not healing it.
Correct.
It's just temporarily having you avoid it.
You didn't achieve a new mindset.
Correct.
That's not happening.
And it's not sustainable.
That would be the distraction we're referring to. So you didn't do anything. You didn't achieve any grand notion of happiness at that moment. You covered up something for a little while. Right. And so the way you can tell if it's working or not is when that distraction wears away, do you still feel the same way you felt? If you do, then it didn't work.
So it's almost like sleeping to avoid your problems.
Exactly.
So what happens when you can't get to sleep?
Well, when you can't get to sleep, that's when you guys
start taking that. Well, but that's what I'm saying. Then people start taking things. To go to sleep, rather than looking at, what is really causing you issues with not being able to sleep?
Maybe it's the caffeine you had at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and maybe it's
the stress.
Not resolving stuff. Yeah.
Find the root cause as opposed.
In other words, isn't it pretty normal for people to blame other people for their unhappiness and then give credit to false things for happiness?
And that's the problem with attaching your happiness to all these impermanent things.
Right.
That's the problem with saying, like, money, for instance.
Right.
Like, if you think money is your happiness, you're never going to be happy, because there's always going to be more. Right. There's always going to want another one. There's always going to be something out there taking your money from you, and then you're going to blame all these other things.
Yeah, somebody's burning money.
Which, then how do you? Because I'm sure it was a really famous person that said it, but I'm going to take credit for it at the moment.
Yeah, you enjoy it.
The only truly free or truly happy people I've heard, are the ones that have nothing. Because when you have nothing, you don't have to worry about losing anything. You're just free. I'm good. I'm not saying you should go out there and be homeless tomorrow, but there is something to be said for that, though. There is something, that mindset of, I'm good. Like, yes, I have these are nice, but if they're not there, I'd still be happy. Because I don't require this to be happy. Because whenever you put that kind of weight on something, then it's very fragile. It can go away at any given moment. And I know for me, when I first got into it, right now I have a much more altruistic idea of it. But when I first started out, I just, screw you. I hated the idea that this little thing has that much power over me. I didn't like that. So for me, that's how I got into it, was just, even getting angry with other people, for instance. Getting angry, I didn't like the idea that this other person, this other thing, had the ability to make me that angry.
Right.
Because to me, that was a weakness. Like, you're so weak that you're going to let this other thing control how you feel? Really? And so for me, that was, it was a slap in the face that I needed. Right? Because the second truth is basically saying that your aversion or your clinging causes your suffering. And so basically the pain, other words, whatever you believe in, God or whatever, universe, whatever your higher power may or may not be, it can do all sorts of stuff. Bills, flat tires, relationship issues, kids, rain, whatever. You can't control any of that stuff. But the one thing you can control is how you respond to it. That's the only thing you control. So, like, when I first started out, if I got angry, I lost. And let me tell you, I hate to lose, brother. I don't know if you know this about me yet. I am a very competitive individual. I cannot stand to lose. And so when I first started my path, this idea that these other things were controlling my happiness, I hated that. Because I was like, like the control issue of, like, you're not about to control what I'm about. I'm going to show you. And so that's how I started in this path, which I don't care how you start spirituality. I don't care what brings you to it. Because if you really, truly envelop yourself into whatever your spirituality is, and I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the spiritualities that are out there, they're all kind of the same thing for the most part. They're all going to get you to it eventually if you stick with it long enough and you do it appropriately. So I don't care what got you into the door as long as you get into the door.
Right.
And so once you get into the door, that's when you start to kind of associate happiness with the things that are going to truly make you happy. So the other branch, right? So I've already kind of indirectly spoken. So to me, I think happiness starts with spirituality. And from that, you branch out to multiple different things, but I narrowed it down to mainly two for this show. First one is acceptance. Accepting things as they are, not as you want them to be, essentially. Why are you smiling? Oh, you're getting ready to laugh or something.
No, I'm just enjoying it.
And so the other half...
You're not used to people enjoying when you're speaking?
Not only you enjoying it. And the other half, I would say, is kind of giving back, generosity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's... God, that's so overlooked, man. That is so overlooked. And I'm going to be a psychic here for a minute, and I'm going to say, maybe not you, but almost everybody watching right now or hearing this, when I say giving back, you all immediately thought money. I don't have enough money. I can give. Dude, there's so many more ways of giving back. I sat there and watched yesterday over 100 people giving back. Out of that 100 people, I'm going to say 75 of them were giving back financially. The rest of them, time.
Yeah.
They were there. They were there to support a cause. And I guarantee you not a single person walked away from that event saying, man, I wish I wouldn't have gone.
130 people to be exact.
There you go.
Yeah, there was over 30 volunteers.
Yeah. And not a single one of them walked away thinking, I wish I didn't do that. No, they were like, I felt pretty good about that.
Right.
And not all of them gave money. Some of them just gave time. Dude, generosity could just be a hug. It could just be a, hey, are you okay? Are you doing all right today? But giving back is food for the soul. And once again, it sounds like a cliche fortune cookie, but giving back, giving of yourself, somehow, some way, it brings a certain amount of joy or in peace and happiness and whatever adjective you want to put to it. You'll know what it is when you do it, right? And even something as simple as giving $1 to somebody on the street corner, or showing up to an event and volunteering your time, or doing like a big brother, big sister association, whatever it may be. If you're giving back, and you're giving to somebody that can do nothing for you, you're just giving to that person for the sake of just, I have something, let me give it to you. You'll notice there's a change, man. If you do it, and actually there's certain Buddhist like scriptures actually that say that is the path to enlightenment, to be honest with you, is through generosity. Start to give. That's how Siddhartha, when he became the Buddha, actually was, and is still practiced today in some of the monasteries over in Tibet. So a lot of the monks don't have food. They rely on the people in the villages that they're with to feed them. The generosity. That's the only way they live. So there's something to be said about that. And I know you mentioned something along those lines actually yesterday in the text message.
Right.
So I thought you'd like to hear that. But,
okay.
But you're 100% correct. Giving back does give to yourself. And so the two things I typically hear, first of all, that they go to money. They think I don't have enough money. The other thing I hear, though, is I don't want to take care of everybody else. I want to take care of me. I want to take care of my people.
Right.
And I've said this before on a previous show, but I'll say it again. Let's say through this show or through the groups or whatever it may be, let's say here locally, I'm able to help 10 people. I'm able to be the catalyst because I am not able to help you find happiness. I'm able to give you the path, but you have to walk that path. But let's say I'm the catalyst that helps 10 people find happiness. Is that not 10 fewer people now, adding to the frustration and the rage in the world that my kids have to grow up in?
Yeah, somebody you don't have to take care of.
Yeah. So helping other people is helping yourself. And I think that interconnectivity we oftentimes forget. Like, we're all on this journey together, guys. We're all human beings. We're all trying to find happiness, and we're all failing miserably. You know what I mean? And so, we're trying to help one another out and kind of like, look, let's go. And there's not a finite amount of happiness in the world either. I think that's another misinterpretation or misunderstanding, if you will. it's kind of like crabs in a barrel, pulling each other down. People think sometimes that, there's only 10 spots of happiness. So if you find one, that's one. No, dude, we can all be happy.
Right.
Like there's not just a certain amount and then, oh, sorry, better luck next time. We could all find it, guys. I hate to break it to you. It's possible. But the way we get there, though, is helping others and accepting things and finding spirituality.
And if that's your people, then good. Be your brother's keeper.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, then keep them, though.
Yeah, I'm not saying not to take care of your people.
Yeah, do it.
I'm saying expand your definition of my people sometimes.
It will also expand what you think keeping your brother is. Like this ride or die thing is not right. Sometimes, this ride or die mentality, you're allowing your friend to die is what's happening.
Yeah.
You got to be honest with them.
Well, secrets keep you sick, kind of a thing, right? And so allowing them, keeping their secrets and not wanting to hurt their feelings, well, sometimes that might keep them sick.
Right.
Sometimes the best thing they need is a stern hand.
I think that's why you and I get along so well. We both know that both of us have thick enough skin that if we say it, I mean, we'll get over it no matter. But you got to say it.
No, for sure. But like I said, I think that I've been asked quite a few times about happiness, and I think that it is such a broad term, and I could probably do multiple shows on it. But I think just to start out, though, I think that's kind of where I want us to stick with for right now, is just you got to find spirituality, and I'm actually, I'll save that for later. I got my 3 things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've already said them, but I'll reiterate later.
Of course.
So, but I'm curious to get your thoughts, man, because you've been in the counseling world for a while. Is that something you notice a lot?
Well,
in the
people not
counseling
embracing happiness?
Well, people having conflicting definitions of happiness.
Oh, 100%. But that's why I brought up what I was bringing up in relation to people tend to define their happiness based on not feeling. So if I have painful feelings from my childhood, if I have had trauma, the absence of those feelings, sometimes I'll define as happiness. So let's say it is. Right. Okay, so now it is. What created it? Well, then I'll tend to attach, well, I got drunk, or I got high, or I ignored it, or I got distracted by this or that, right. Or to some it's pornography, to some it's actual sex, to some it's violence, or let's go down mine. Mine was violence, drugs, in party scenes. So while I was in the drug scenes or doing some sort of deal, or in a violent situation, that I could define. Right. it. My happiness was either defined. I'm either angry or I'm happy. So I had 2 speeds.
No in between.
There was no in between.
Okay.
Because if I woke up and I was feeling it in an in-between, usually you get a few other people in the in-between motion and you're trying to move in one direction. Well, let's go do this,
right.
Or let's go do that. Because just sitting still, now you're stuck with just thinking of normal everyday feelings. And because we didn't know how to identify those or relate to those or even appreciate those, because that seems like weak things.
Well, and you hit on something very interesting, actually, that I've noticed is a lot of people I've talked to over the years, and even myself, I'm guilty of it early on. The 2 things I noticed is, one is the extremes.
Right.
It's either happy or
absolutely
happy or angry. Like
that's it.
There is no in between.
That's it.
And anything in between is icky. I don't want that. I got to bounce back and forth between these two. And that is a huge thing that I see.
You don't get taught the in between. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
And the other thing I see is avoidance. I see a lot of people don't want to think. They don't.
Right.
There was a show actually you turned me on to, Alone.
Okay.
When they're out in the woods or whatever. And the one thing that I kept noticing over and over and over. First of all, I want to say I didn't talk to you afterwards, but I picked every single
season, didn't you? Yeah, I knew you would.
In the beginning, my wife and I had a little game where they would go through their entries. Right. And as they're kind of doing their introductions, we would pick who we think is going to make it to the longest, and we'd have our own little criteria.
Yeah.
I want every single one,
but
only because I kind of was able to look and see the more spiritual part of who they had. Right. To me, that was always my X factor.
You understood the game better.
Well, I looked at their spirituality and their motivation for being there. Those were the 2 things that I was looking at the most. But regardless, all the seasons that I watched, the one thing that they all hated the most was the psychological aspect of being alone. And it wasn't because of anything other than they couldn't control where their mind was going.
Right.
And boy, let me tell you something. If that is not the definition of suffering from the Buddhist perspective anyways, I don't know what is. Because the idea is, it wasn't the thoughts. It was their inability to control the thoughts was what was bothering them. Dude, that's the first 4 truths in a nutshell.
100%.
Pain is going to be a part of your life.
Right.
You cause your
you suffering
through the aversion and the clinging of it.
Right.
And the third truth, it's possible not to, and just accept it. So if any of those people, the ones who were successful, matter of fact, there was one guy. It was beautiful the way it worked out. Actually, my wife actually had to admit that I was right for a minute. And then it was a beautiful.
I was impressed because at the beginning of each season, you would tell me who your pick was, and in my head, I was like, "Damn, he got it."
Well, but I was dead on with this one guy, right? They had this guy where he did his little introduction, right? And he said he was a school teacher or something, and he was getting ready to have like adoption, some kids or something, and none of that stuff sounds good to me. But there was one moment. Well, I mean, good as far as being out there.
It just sounds funny when you say it now without all the explanation.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it doesn't bode well for him sticking it out long term, I should say.
There you go.
But there was out of all the stuff that I heard, there was only one thing that I heard was like, "Oh, you're done," and that was his plan. I couldn't make this. His plan to deal with all the thoughts was to ignore them. That was his plan. His plan going into it was, I'm not going to be just positive thinking is going to make me through and just think positively, and that's going to happen. And all this other stuff, I'm not even going to think about it. I told my wife right then and there, she was, I'll remember it like it was yesterday, because she was in the kitchen doing something. I looked over, I was like, he's not going to make it. He's going to go home real quick, watch. And sure enough, dude, it was like day 2, the guy went home. I don't even think he made it day 2.
I don't even think he made it day 2.
Because he started immediately, because that's what life does, man.
Right.
You got to have a plan, and that's what spirituality is. Spirituality is your plan. And so when he was thinking, like, he was putting up his little whatever, and all of a sudden his mind started wondering about, I wonder what my wife is.
Exactly. And then you're dead.
He had no way to do anything.
They clearly have never been to prison or have talked to somebody in prison either, because it's the same philosophy of how to make prison, except you can't quit and go home. It's not like you go, all right, I'm done. I'm not good here anymore.
Yeah. And so for this guy, and the ones that make it, for instance, right? The ones that make it, they're no different. They have the same thoughts.
You're right.
Their main difference, though, is they accepted it. And that's where acceptance comes into play. Doesn't mean they liked it any more or less than he did. They're just better prepared, because they've admitted to the fact it's going to happen. I'm not going to like these thoughts. They're going to make me think of home, but that's part of the game.
Right.
And I'm just going to allow it to be there. I'm allowed to come, and I'm allowed to go. That's impermanence, kids. I just taught you impermanence with Buddhism.
There you go, that word again.
And allow things to come and allow things to go. Impermanence. It's not going to last forever. So, and that's for the good things and for the bad, right? So the good things are not going to last forever. Sorry. Every good thing has a built-in crappy moment, the moment it stops, right? But bad stuff doesn't last forever either.
Yeah, and I try to ride that wave with drugs, like to not come down ever.
Good luck,
yeah, that was really hard.
Every group I've ever taught, I've asked that same question. I was like,
so hard.
And they were like, yeah.
Well, because you had drugs to go that way and this way. You know, you have the lefts and the rights and the ups and the downs.
Still doesn't work.
And it takes a, you got to have like Iron Man blood or something like that, you know. But you know, you said something, so I want to tap into that a little bit, because you also saw on that show that the people that suffered a lot of pain but weren't prepared to deal with that, they left. Yeah. You saw the people that suffered failure and not able to deal with that, leave. You saw the people that suffered hunger and not able to deal with that, left. But you also saw the people that experienced true success. They got the food and they were very productive in what to build. And they left. Because at the end of the day, whatever our reasoning was to leave, whether it be that you cannot survive, that it was too difficult, that you're too scared, or you've met all the goals you came to get, and you have no other distractions that are going to help you, because you really just went there just to show that you know how to build things. But spiritually or internally, you needed a different speed that you weren't able to tap into at that moment, because those distractions weren't there anymore.
Well, yeah, for some of them, that's why
all of them left.
Well, that's why my 2 criteria, right? My 2 criteria was spiritual. And doesn't necessarily imply church, whatever. It's just their mentality, how they approach things.
Yeah.
The more spiritual approach they took,
I
automatically liked them. Right. But the way I weeded them out was your motivation for being there.
Right. So that's big.
Yeah.
And so if you parlay that now break it down to the person that's listening or watching, because you got about 6 minutes left.
Let me get my turntable.
All right.
Break it down.
So for those individuals, then they're like, all right, well, I don't really have my purpose in life right now, or I feel like it's waning a little bit because I've suffered some failures, or I've suffered some bad things. You know, whether it be a divorce, a loss of somebody, a bad breakup. I lost my job. Somebody important to me died. Right. Help me out now. Now how am I supposed to find that new purpose, or what do I do in this moment?
Well, I mean, and that's, first of all, I think you're doing the right thing if you're watching the show at the moment. That means you're either already there
or listening on WPSN99.com. Just saying.
I say watch because I'm watching you. But yes, if you're listening to the show, you're starting out right. Because you're either listening to the show because you found your spirituality and you're trying to continue to maintain it, or you're searching for something and you're listening for alternate ideas and thoughts. And that's where it starts. I think it starts is humbling yourself and realizing what you don't know. I just had this conversation with my 18-year-old the other day. He's trying to drive and do something. I was like, look, man, I think you handled that moment very well. You handled it like an 18-year-old should. But the difference is you need to get to the point now where you know what you don't know. And that's where you need to be. That shows wisdom, right? And so I think that's that's the first approach we've got to take, right? And these are going to be my three things. So the first thing is find spirituality. Maybe erase what your definition of spirituality is and start from scratch. Because your definition of spirituality, if you don't feel yourself being a very spiritual person at the moment, then maybe it's just your definition of spirituality isn't working with where you're at. So get rid of that definition. Start scratch and look into different ideas of spirituality. Let's say if you're a religious individual, then stick with whatever that religion is that got you into it. And let's say you're a religious individual, but you're feeling frustrated with the churches, right? Like, because I know a lot of people like that, actually. I know a lot of people who are religious who would call themselves a Christian, but they're disgusted with how certain aspects of the Christian religion is being portrayed at the moment, right? I mean, Muslims. I got Muslim friends, and they'll be the first to tell me that these people out there bombing, that's not Muslim, guys. That's extreme. That is not who we are, right? So if you are a Christian individual, and in your mind you think you have your spirituality, then maybe take it from a different approach. Find other ways of worshiping your religion, your God, right? Instead of going to that same old church that you go to all the time, dude. There's so many different types of churches out there. There's Pentecostal ones. I mean, that was just the first one popped in my head because I know they have fun. But my point being,
with the rattlesnakes, is that the one?
No, isn't that? Oh gosh, I don't.
Never mind. Don't let me derail
yeah,
you. Squirrel.
Right, squirrel. Snakes actually is what they would be. Evangelicals. There we go. Anyways. My point being is there's a ton of different ways of practicing church, man, of going to it. There's, I get the surfer guy. I think I read somewhere there's a surfer's church and stuff, man, where they view the water as their place and they go out there and they get spiritual. My point being is stop putting yourself in that little box, man, where I'm either Christian and I practice this way I don't agree with, or I don't have spirituality. Well, there's a middle somewhere. You can still remain Christian if that's what your belief is. Just find another way of practicing it, man. I'm an atheist guy, and there's some churches I've seen that, this seems kind of cool. Right? I'm not, I'd have to get past my initial rejection of the whole philosophy, but they look kind of cool. There's one guy, he's got like a mohawk or something. He's out there, he's doing these big like stadium things, and he looks really cool. So I'm like, I'd want to check that out. My point being is find spirituality, find it somehow, some way, whatever it may be. And get outside your normal definition. Get outside that little box you put yourself in, and pick up a book. Read something different. If you've never heard of Buddhism before, read it. Pick a good book. Find Siddhartha. I've never read it myself. It's on my list, but I've heard pretty much everybody I've spoken to that knows anything about Buddhism, Louis included, whether they practice or not, they all said that they've read Siddhartha, and they all have a pretty good understanding of what Buddhism is. So I'm going to take their word for it. Maybe it's a good book to start. So, and it's a small one. So if you don't think Buddhism is for you, pick up the book Siddhartha and read it. Maybe you'll end that book saying, you know what, I was right, this isn't for me. Or you might end up saying, wow, I never looked at it that way. That's pretty interesting. Or it might make you turn back into your own religion. Maybe you'll look back in your own religion and say, man, there's some people in there who behave kind of like this. I never really associated. Let me talk to them a little bit more. So for that person saying that, I would say find spirituality, whatever that may be for you. Find some sort of spirituality that you can call your own, that gives you some sort of peace inside that you can kind of connect with a little bit. The second one I have here is give back. Find ways of volunteering your time. We all don't have money. If you've got money, fantastic. But even then, if you give money, that's great, and I would encourage you to do so. nowmatters.org. I would encourage you to give money by all means. But to me, sometimes giving money isn't going to give you enough. There's no that connection there. And so what I would say is find in your local community, find a homeless shelter, find some sort of nonprofit in your area, and just give up a Saturday afternoon. Instead of sitting around on the couch saying I should get in the garage and clean it, go give up your afternoon and just kind of see people who don't have as much as you and find ways of helping, and tell me you don't feel better at the end of that day, and that kind of peace that gives you. And then the third one is work on acceptance. Work on accepting things for the way they are, not the way you want them to be. Everything is what it is, man. Everything happens exactly the way it's supposed to happen, period. I know that sounds very, Confucius says, but whatever happened, It happened at the exact moment it was supposed to happen. It happened the way it was supposed to happen, and whoever was there was supposed to be there, and whoever wasn't there wasn't supposed to be there. Period. Nothing you're going to do to change that. Accept it for what it is, not as you want it to be. So if you worked on those 3 things, I think you'll find yourself kind of having an outlook that you maybe never thought you could have, or reinforcing a good one that you already do have. Find your spirituality, give back, and work on acceptance.
I like it.
Those are my 3.
I think you did really well in there.
And look at that. I have like 30 seconds to spare.
Well, I think that if you're going to be looking for your spirituality, I know the way I find mine is by it wasn't hard to read philosophy. If reading, faith-based stuff doesn't do it for you, start with reading philosophy.
Absolutely.
And that's an interesting way to get the brain working the way it needs to work to get there.
And on that note, now that you know better, be better. See ya.
I think he plans it all out. Just makes it up as he goes along.